Hello and welcome back to Sparringpod with me, Hallgeir Gustavsen. Today I have an English guest, as you might understand by my trying to speak English at least. Heather is a Canadian business owner based in Sweden. Since 2011, she's been helping hundreds of small business owners as a business consultant, and also she runs her own small boutique thing with small ship expeditions in the Arctic and Antarctic. I think that's quite exciting. She also shares her expertise and experience to support entrepreneurs with her first book, No Plan B. Welcome to my podcast, Heather. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's so nice to have even more English speakers, not just because I get to educate myself in my second language, but also it's quite nice to reach a broader audience, and you do that also, but you haven't been living in your home country for quite a while, have you?
It's been a long time. Yeah, the last time I lived in Canada would have been 2012.
Yeah. So where have you been? What have you been doing?
Well, since then, I moved to Peru in 2012, lived there until late 2014, and then I was sort of in limbo, kind of living out of my suitcase as a digital nomad for a while, and then settled in Sweden. So that's essentially where I've been.
Center of the universe, Sweden. How did you end up in Sweden?
Typical story. I fell in love with a Swede.
I kind of thought as much.
Yeah.
And what have you been doing other than being a nomad and starting up Arctic and Antarctic expedition companies? What do you do?
You mean like hobby-wise?
Yeah, let's start with hobby-wise.
Yeah, good question. I mean, when the season is right, I'm a huge forager, so you can usually find me in the forest.
Yeah.
I really love nature. I really love traveling, so I travel as often as I can. Obviously not during COVID times,
No.
but traveling is a big thing, and reading and writing, which is why I ended up with a book.
Yes. How long did you spend before actually thinking to yourself, well, I should write this down?
Well, the seed was planted for the book around 2015, I would say, for this particular book.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I had people tell me many times, you have to write a book, you have to write a book. And you know, I'm sure a lot of listeners have heard similar feedback, you know, people telling them you should write a book. It's easy for other people to say when they think that you're interesting or what you say is interesting or that your life is interesting, but for you to actually get the concept and say, okay, well, here's the thing I'm going to write the book around, that was the hard bit. So the seed for this particular book, which is for entrepreneurs, was planted around 2015, but I didn't actually start writing it until that seed got much clearer, which was around 2018. And then it was a 2-year process of writing a draft and then rewriting the entire thing, editing and publishing it in October.
Yeah, is it self-published or?
Yeah, it is self-published.
Self-published, and it's available on Amazon?
Available on Amazon, Book Depository, most major retailers, yeah.
What would you say is the main takeaway for No Plan B? I've looked on the what's it called, the vaskelapp, we call it in Norway.
Like the little description of the book. Yeah.
What would you say is the who's it for and who's it not for?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it's actually very specific. So who it's for are the people who are driven, they're smart, they love to work, they love to do interesting things, they like to do a lot of different things. They're definitely not lazy, but they find it almost impossible to function within a sort of traditional office or work style, like a 9 to 5, or working for someone, being managed, being expected to fill out spreadsheets or go to meetings that they just don't find valuable, you know? Because I spent the first half of my professional career working for other people. You know, I worked all over the world. I worked in lots of different environments. I worked in sort of low grade type work all the way up to like sort of high end corporate jobs where I had all expenses paid for and it was very fancy. They call it the golden handcuffs. And there was nothing of any of that experience in any exciting part of the world that made it better for me. It just always sucked. And then I was like, oh, it's because I don't fit into this model of work. It's not for me. So that's who I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to these people who are interesting, excited, driven. They love to work, but they just want to be able to work autonomously on their own terms. They want to be able to bring their own ideas to life and not have to ask for permission. Especially people who hate doing work for work's sake. And I keep going back to the idea of filling out a spreadsheet that nobody will ever read.
I like that image because it's like those people that write out the reports they are tasked with, but nobody checks up on the reports and nobody actually has use for the reports. I got a new client a couple of months ago, and I'm going to help him with marketing. And he asked, could I get the report every month, just what's working with the advertising? And I said, yes, of course you can. What do you want to say in the report? And he was like, I don't know. I got the report from my last marketing provider. Could you make a report similar to that? And I said, yes, of course. Which of the numbers do you actually have a relationship to?
Yeah.
I don't know. He actually never read the report.
Yeah.
He just felt a certainty or a value in getting the reports every month so that he would know that somebody was doing something. So, so I was like, okay, maybe if I just make a report and I can explain to you why those numbers are valuable to you, could that be interesting? It's like, yes, you can do that. but that's, if I didn't ask myself those questions, I would most likely just be making a report that he got in his inbox and then archive the email.
Yeah, and that's not a good use of your time. You know, like we only have one life. And so how do we want to spend our hours every day? And one of the things I talk about in the book is my last job when I was working for a pharmaceutical company. A lot of my job was sitting in doctors' offices waiting to see them because my job was to go and visit doctors and talk about medications. And like every day I would probably spend somewhere between 3 or 4 hours sitting in doctors' offices waiting to see them. And I'm not kidding you, it actually felt crushing. Like there were times where I would be sitting there and almost feel like I was going to cry because I kept saying to myself, there was this dialogue running through my head saying, you're not going to get these hours back. You're not going to get these hours back. That's my life disappearing before my eyes. For what? You know?
You should have gotten another job that you could do in between while you waited to do your other job.
I should have.
Yeah. So what did you do in that job? You talked to doctors about health
about medications. Yeah, I was a pharmaceutical representative. And unfortunately, this was like in the 2000s, so it was pre-smartphone. I still had like a flip phone that you could only like send text messages on. You couldn't get on the internet or anything. So I was really limited in what I could have done in my downtime, unfortunately. But yeah, that was I took that job for specific reasons, and once those reasons were fulfilled, I left and I never looked back.
But okay, how do you jump into being a consultant or coach? How do you do that, and and why? Why do you do that?
Very valid questions. I didn't know when I left the corporate world what I was going to do. I had no idea. So I got packaged off from that company because they were downsizing, and I was like, perfect, I'm out of here. Yeah. And then because I had a little bit of a cash cushion, I thought, I can't move forward until I have more insight into what makes sense for me. And I don't ever want to go back and work for anyone else. But up to that point, I mean, I was 32 then, and I was sort of as they say, a jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. So I didn't have a specific skill set. And when you're thinking about entrepreneurship or self-employment and you don't have a specific sellable skill set, what do? You know, like that's kind of tough.
Yeah.
So I thought about it a lot. I took a bunch of courses. I started doing crafty things because I had ignored that part of my life for so many years. And I opened a couple of Etsy shops to just start to do the sort of like maker, like how do you run a business and sell products, and like learning a little bit about marketing on a really low risk level.
Yeah.
Then I learned about the concept of life coaching, which I had never heard about before. And my first reaction, because I'm really not into woo-woo stuff, was, oh my God, life coaching? Are you kidding me? But then I thought, actually getting trained as a life coach, it's people skills at the end of the day. It's people facilitation skills. It's helping people figure out what's best for them based on their own truth. So I decided to enroll in a life coaching program so that I would have a skill, a marketable skill under my belt. And that's what I did. I got certified at a year-long, really intensive, very expensive program, graduated from that. And while I was in that program, I learned some basic web design skills because being an incurable entrepreneur, I learn a lot of skills really fast.
You should. That's one thing you should do also. So I totally agree.
Yeah, multiple skills. So I learned how to do some basic web design. I put up a website for myself. I started marketing myself as a life coach. And I just said, I'm not a certified coach yet, but I have reduced rates and I'm happy to take on anybody. Yeah. So it started with that. And then the life coaching, I carried on with that. But then I moved to Peru and I was continuing to life coach people via Skype. And my life coaching sort of like group that I had graduated with back in Toronto, where I had been living, they were like, what? How can you do life coaching in Peru? Like, do you do it in Spanish? I speak Spanish, but anyways. And I was like, no, it's called the internet. You market yourself on the internet. And still, this was 2011. So it was still, it was still that time where people didn't fully understand how you could do things via the internet. And so all of my fellow life coaching grads were just life coaching people in person. And here I was off in Peru, life coaching people by Skype, and it blew their minds. So I started teaching people about online marketing and and it just slowly, actually it wasn't slow, it was quite quickly, it rolled into business coaching. And then I started running international retreats. I started bringing entrepreneurs down to Peru. I did an international entrepreneurial retreat in Iceland and just gathered people together and talked about how do we build our businesses? How do we build businesses online? And yeah.
I have a question about those international resorts, get-togethers, because I've seen a couple of them and I get the distinct feeling that, I'm not saying all, let's say some of them are just quite expensive sales meetings that you pay to go to. Would that be totally off mark?
I wouldn't say it's totally off mark. It depends on who's selling it. A lot of the people that you see are doing that 100%. It's a way to get a captive audience in and sell to them. Yeah. I hate that stuff. So that's not me at all, right?
I would think so, or else we wouldn't. I wouldn't find you. I don't think I would find you interesting enough to talk to if you. if I took you for being one of those people. So I have to value my own opinions highly enough that I'm sure you're not one of those. But that's kind of the vibe I get from come to Thailand, spend 14 days with us and learn marketing and go home with the $50,000 bill for something else.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm not a very good salesperson. I'm the kind of person that creates things that you're interested in and invites you in if you're interested. And if you're not, I'm not going to try to convince you, And also, I was still pretty new to entrepreneurship. So I wasn't, not that I would now necessarily, but I wasn't trying to upsell anyone. My motivation with those was always, they were called adventure reboot retreats. And the reason that I did them in Peru, partially because I lived there, and also Iceland, is because I wanted people to get outside of their comfort zone. I wanted fairly new entrepreneurs. The price point wasn't high. I wanted the price point to be accessible, and I wanted people to come to a part of the world that felt a little bit outside of their comfort zone. Yeah. But they were comfortable doing it because they trusted me. They trusted me as their guide, And so I was like, here we are. We're away from your regular life. We're away from your kids. We're away from everything. We're in this beautiful spot. We're going to do stuff that's a little bit scary. We're going to go on some hikes that you wouldn't normally try to do. This is an adventure. And we're going to reboot your system so that you're prepared for the slings and arrows of entrepreneurship. You're prepared to take risks in your business. You're prepared to look at doing things that you might not otherwise do, you know? And that was the idea. It was more, it was sort of an overall mindset concept. And at the end, rather than upselling people, my motive was to deepen the relationships with those people. I wanted those people to go away and feel like this is someone I want to continue connecting with. This is someone I would recommend people, you know, learn from, that kind of thing. So
that sounds like a smart way of going about it. But if we go to the space-time continuum part of my show, which is the past, the now, then the future, if you go 25 years back, what would you tell Heather 25 years ago?
What would I tell Heather 25 years ago? I would tell Heather to just keep listening to her gut, because all the things that she thinks she wants for herself, she can get.
What things about 2020, Heather, do you think 25 years ago Heather would be most impressed with?
Probably that I have a book and that I run a polar expedition company. I mean, even Heather from 2015 would be like, what?
Okay. Before we go further into the past or the future, how did that come about? How? Why?
Well, part of my issue, you know, this incurable entrepreneur concept that I keep referring to, that my book is centered around, is that I'm not really good at doing one thing. And so when I see opportunities, I want to take them, especially when I see really good ones. So I met my husband in 2013 in Antarctica. He was a polar expedition guide, as was I. I actually pressed pause on my own business. This is a different side story, but I pressed pause on my life coaching business. And I just did this little short 2-month stint on a ship in Antarctica because of someone that I knew. I know a lot of people. I've lived around the world a lot. So it was kind of like an accidental, fortuitous meeting that I met my husband, or the guy that would become my husband, and he has a twin brother. And so they're both these big Viking-looking Swedish twins, exactly as you would expect, big red beards, tall, strapping. And everybody knows in the industry, in the Antarctic expedition industry, everybody knows them because, I mean, they're a walking, talking sales force, you know? And so being down there with him, I noticed that the guests on these ships were always saying, oh, you know, do you also go up to the Arctic? And of course, yes, that's the case. Usually polar guides work in the Antarctic in one season, and then the alternate season, they go to the Arctic. And so I was seeing that there was like literally almost at every meal that we had with guests, the guests were asking about trips in the other end. And when we were in the Arctic, it was the opposite. They're like, oh, do you guys go to the Antarctic? Can we book a trip that you guys will be working on? And so my business brain was like, why don't we have a company? We should have a travel agency and book these people. Why are we sending them to someone else to make those commissions? You know, that's crazy. So we opened up an agency in 2015. My husband and his brother are not business people. And so they were just like, all right, if you think it's a good idea, we won't stop you. And then by 2017, some friends of ours had bought small ships, 12-passenger vessels, which was sort of secretly our dream all along. We imagined later in the future that we'd have enough money to hire those types of ships. But they bought these ships in 2017 and they said, do you guys want to try running a couple of trips? And typical me, I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. So then we started operating our own trips, which is really fantastic. And, you know, COVID aside, the growth has been really consistent and it's been really exciting to build that brand.
How nice. That's a really cool story. And it's a cool concept. Is there anything with you right now that you think 25 years ago you would be embarrassed about yourself?
Oh, gosh, that's a really good question. I would be embarrassed about myself. I can't think of anything. The only thing I think that might surprise me 25 years ago, because how old was I then? 17. I think she would be surprised that I had settled in one place, especially that I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like I live in a tiny, tiny, tiny little village in the middle of nowhere, Sweden. So I think that would surprise me.
It's not even in the middle of nowhere. It's like on the outskirts in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So
that's
I think
basically the Swedish version of where I'm from in Norway. So I get it.
So yeah, and I'm not embarrassed by it, but I think me back then would be like, what? No, that's not where you're going to end up, and that's not where you're going to be ridiculously happy. But here we are.
What things do you hope that you'll be able to carry with you into the future?
I hope that I'm able to carry with me my capacity for managing uncertainty. I think it makes me nervous getting older that I'm going to get more conservative or more worried about uncertainty and want more security. I hope that I'm always able to really hold that and know that at the end of the day, I always end up just fine. I always end up on my own 2 feet.
Nice. Do you think that, like in the future, that you are going to do things differently, or that do you think that you'll continue on the path of just doing trying out new things all the time? Do you think so?
I think I'll always value novelty. I think I will want to try out new things, but not necessarily new companies. I don't know that I'm going to keep on opening different things, but I look at Twin Tracks Expeditions, our expedition company, and I look at how I want it to grow and then where I want my role to be in the context of that growth. And I want that to be something that doesn't get old for me. I want that to be new and refreshing. And I want to be in a sort of, obviously a leadership role because I own the company, but I don't want that to get old. And there's some other things that I have on the back burner as well. But I'm very aware as I get older and also as I mature as an entrepreneur, now having done this for a good 10 years, that the thing that I did earlier on that I don't want to do now and I want to do even less in the future is spread myself too thin. Yeah. So I'm very wary of that element and just making sure that I'm protecting my energy, because working a lot because you like it and you're addicted to it isn't always a good thing. You should actually put a stopper on it and say, like, this doesn't all have to get done. Nobody's going to care at the end of the day.
Have you read the book Great at Work by Morten Hansen?
No, I haven't.
He's a Norwegian writer. He's been at INSEAD and Harvard. He has written this book called Great at Work, where he did also write Good to Great with Jim something.
Yep.
So this is basically the good to great for individual people working. So one of his main principles is do less than obsess.
Yeah.
This year has been my plan was before COVID was that this was going to be my year of refinement, trying to say no to more things and do not less things but fewer things. Haven't been able to do so, mostly because of COVID, and I had to do whatever it took. But I think it's a nice goal to have, to just not spread too thin.
Yeah.
If we go to ideas, I've read from people that have worked with you that you're very good at coming up with ideas. Is that just something you do naturally, or do you have like a process of coming up with ideas?
I don't have a process. I wish I did, because it would be easier for other people to also do. I don't have a process. I don't know if it came naturally or if it's just a product of my life. I do remember being very young and looking at like people slightly older than me, like people in their late teens and 20s, and they would talk about their lives in this way, like, oh, this is all that I can do. This is all, I'm just going to be a this, And I was like, what are you talking about? You could do so many things. You could go back to school and you could do this and this and this. And I, like, based on what I perceive to be their personality and their strengths, like their soft skills, And I always thought, like, why does everybody think about themselves in such a limited way? So I do remember having that kind of thought process from a very young age. But then as I went through life, I moved away from Canada for the first time when I was 14. And then between 14 and now at 42, I've lived long-term in 7 different countries all over the world. I've had lots of experiences. I've met lots of people. I speak different languages. And I think that experience has fed itself into this sort of a superpower whereby when I sit down and I speak with a client and they're like, well, here's what I'm thinking, or here's what I've been doing in my business, I just immediately start going, yeah, but you could do this, and you could do this, and you could do this, and you could do this, because I've seen a lot. And also I've worked with so many people over the years that I've seen different ways of doing things or different approaches or different ideas. And that's all stuck up in here like an encyclopedia, right? So then I could just get to pull it out and throw it at them and say, like, what do you think about this? And then we refine that down into what actually makes the most sense for their business and their personality type and their ability to, like, how many hours in the day can they work? Not everybody has full work hours because they have other things going on. So, all that kind of thing.
What would you say is the best idea you ever had?
I have no idea. That's an almost impossible question. For someone else, I have no idea. But the best idea that I've ever had for myself was probably, even though I just published it, I think the best idea was to write my book. That feels the most, taking a body of work, taking a grouping of valuable ideas and putting it out into the world so that it's going to be there for anybody and everybody is such a powerful thing. And the fact that I've gotten emails from people that I've never met on the other side of the world and pictures on social media of, like, people holding my book and saying, oh, this helped me so much. I'm like, that's magic. Yeah. Like, that's magic. They can find me on Amazon without any previous connection to who I am and read these concepts and be helped. And so I think that makes it the best idea that I ever had.
Cool. Going totally in the opposite direction, what's the worst idea you ever had then?
In business?
Let's do one in business, one in life.
The worst idea I ever had, it wasn't one idea. It was a not being fully informed. When we started our expedition company, I had no idea what I was doing, which is typical. I mean, everything that I start, I'm like, I'm new to this. I've never done this before. Let's see what happens. And I think taking on that kind of risk with hiring small ships and not doing my due diligence was a real lesson. So that was my biggest sort of error. I think my worst judgment in life is staying in relationships, whether romantic or friendships or family, staying in them too long just because, just staying in them too long and having those relationships become like a huge burden on me. And now I used to be much more like that. And now I'm like, I protect these energetic boundaries big time.
I remember I was in a relationship when I was 19. We had been together for like 11 months. It was my longest relationship ever. And it was going quickly downhill. And we both were like, hey, this is not going that great. Maybe we should get kids. That's something that brings people together, isn't it? And I'm so happy we didn't. But I certainly didn't do it. But we seriously talked about it, and seriously happy that we didn't do it. But
19-year-old brains are very soft.
So soft-brained. But what's the worst idea? Do you talk about these things? Is there a bad client idea you have heard that you're like, hey man, you can't do that. Sorry, that's that. Please no.
There's nothing really dramatic. I mean, sometimes people come to me and they want to. They've read or they've learned somewhere about these really aggressive kind of as I call dude bro marketing strategies.
Dude bros,
like
yeah.
treating people like a cash pinata, and I'm just like, oh no, that's not happening. I can't work with you. But that's quite common, I think, because that's what's peddled on the internet a lot. I would say though, the worst ideas that I have are the ideas that are completely unrefined. So they're completely not vetted. They're not something that anybody would want. But the person will come to me and say, I have this amazing idea. I'm in the process of creating this course around this idea. And I think I actually used this example in my book. Someone came to me and said, I can't remember the exact name, but she said, it was a Create Your Dream Life course. And I was like, what does that even mean? And like, nobody lies awake at night thinking, I would just wish I could create my dream life. It's way too nebulous. Like, it's way too out there. There isn't one bad idea, but there's lots of little bad ideas around what people create that they think, oh, this will be the most magical thing and everyone will want to buy it. And then nobody wants to buy it because it's like a big gray area. You know, what does that mean? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs have, is how do you, especially in the like online lifestyle entrepreneur scene, you know, there's a lot of wishy-washy, and I can't stand wishy-washy. And I'm not judging people for it. I'm just saying, if you come to me with wishy-washy, we are gonna make it specific, and you might not like what I have to say, but I'm not gonna mess around. You know, you either create something you can sell, or go find another coach who you can pay money to, and this will never go anywhere. I really judge wishy-washy or magical people that want to sell you magical solutions to problems you didn't even know you had. I really judge that. But what you talked about there, it sounds to me like raw ideas. They're not refined in any way. They are not. It's like you have a dough. You need to do something with. You need to knead out the lumps. You need to maybe use a rolling pin and get it all flat and nice. Put on some pizza sauce, some cheese, put it in the oven, and then maybe it's a good idea. But you don't. The raw ideas, they need to be prepared. Yep. What kind of things inspire you in everyday life? Oh, I think anything that is simple, which sounds like a funny answer, but I really value simplicity. I think just the simplest things, like I said earlier, I love to go out to the forest. You know, I love being with my dog. Like my dog's a puppy. I love the simplicity of seeing her joy in finding a puddle, you know, or seeing like little droplets on leaves and stuff. Those kinds of things I find not inspiring in that they give me business ideas, but in the simplicity really helps center me. And also I find that simplicity in business is something that I'm going more and more and more towards. You know, I just want to keep things simple, lean, to the point, because I think as anything that I create that's simple will be good for me from a time and mental health perspective, but it's also good for the end user, right? Yeah. If we bring things to people and say, look, this doesn't have to be complicated. Here's how simple it actually is. That's a breath of fresh air, right? And there's so much going on in the world. There's so much crap on the internet. Like, let's just bring it down and say, well, what needs to be done? What's the shortest line from A to B? Let's make it happen.
What kind of puppy do you have?
Portuguese water dog.
Oh, they're so nice. I have a 13-week whippet.
Oh, I love whippets.
Yeah, they're also quite nice.
My dog's best friend is a whippet, and they are like, it's so funny to see them wrestle. This like twig dog and then this little bear.
Yeah, my Lucy, she's got a neighboring friend, which is a Staffordshire Bull Terrier.
Oh, no way.
So it's like this small lump of muscles. Yeah, it's quite fun to see.
That's awesome.
But what qualities in others inspire you?
What qualities in others? Yeah. I think I'm really inspired by people who have vision, you know, like, and I don't mean like Elon Musk level vision, although that's pretty cool, but I mean just people who I consider my peers who who see something, they get the idea for something, and then they're able to just bring that vision to life, you know, in a really straightforward way. And it probably isn't, because I don't always see what's behind the scenes. But I feel like there are people in my spheres that they're very good at taking a vision that they have, digging in and bringing that vision to life. And I love that. And I constantly want to learn from those people so that I can evolve into that, right? Because to me, the process of being an entrepreneur is absolutely an evolution. You know, just because I'm not like that now doesn't mean that I'm not going to be like that in 5 years, because that's what I'm aiming for, you know? So I'm really inspired, and I really admire people with that kind of vision.
What do you think that you do that inspires others?
I think, well, I've been told that, funny enough, that my confidence and fearlessness in business, which I suppose can be construed as what I just described, someone who I have a huge amount of respect for, who's actually really internet famous, just told me recently, I love that you see something that you want to do and then you just go and do it. And I was like, what, really? That's how I come across. Nice. But I'm not afraid of things. I'm not afraid of failure, and I'm not afraid of taking risks, of taking calculated risks. And so I think that's the thing that people look at me and they're like, oh, wow, okay, cool. Maybe I can do that too.
Yeah, cool. Have you read Pippi Longstockings?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of the things you say sound a bit like her. I like that a lot. The things with, well, I haven't done that before. I must be good at that. I like that a lot. So now we're into the 20 quick questions, or the questions are quick at least. And then we'll see if the answers are similarly quick. What is your most marked characteristics? Sorry for the pronunciation.
Most marked characteristics. I don't know if I understand the question.
If someone, for instance, your husband would characterize you, what's the first thing he would say?
Ridiculously optimistic.
What quality do you like in a person?
Ability to not take oneself too seriously.
What do you value most in your friends?
Honesty. I really like real
brutal honesty.
Brutal honesty, yeah.
I like that too. What's your principal defect?
Taking on too much.
What's your favorite occupation?
Listener.
What is your vision of happiness?
Walking through the forest with my dog.
What would, to your mind, be the greatest misfortune?
Oh, geez, that's a really tough one. The greatest misfortune, I think, would be to feel like you've led a life unlived.
Nice. How would you like to be remembered?
I told my husband recently, actually, that if I were to just suddenly die at 42, I said, promise me that at whatever funeral or party you have afterwards, that you tell them that I have no unlived life in me. I've done everything I've ever wanted and then some, and everything now is the cherry on top.
Love it. I told my wife, we were in a funeral to a friend of mine, and we talked a lot about death and stuff like that, and she said, how would you like to be remembered? And without missing a beat, I said, like a good king and a great conqueror. So I don't know
Nice.
what that says about me, but yeah. But I like the no life unlived, like that too. In what country would you like to live?
I feel more now than ever that it's important to live in the present, and I really love living in Sweden, so I want to continue living here for the foreseeable future.
What's your favorite color?
Teal.
Who is your favorite writer?
Seth Godin.
Oh, yeah. Who are your favorite fictional heroes?
Oh, my favorite fictional heroes. Jeez. Oh, gosh. I'm drawing a blank.
Are you a Marvel, DC? You don't like superheroes? Star Wars?
It's not so much the superheroes. I'm more of like the fictional characters I love, and I can't even think that there's like one or two. It's the quirky, weird, unexpected heroes, like the people in Wes Anderson films, you know?
Okay, yeah.
Do you know Wes Anderson? Yeah. We just actually watched one of those last night. My fictional heroes are always the unlikely weirdos.
Unlikely weirdos. I like that. Who is your favorite musician?
The singer of Tool, Maynard Keenan.
I love Tool. What do you think about their last album?
It's totally typical of Tool, and I love it for all that it is. They keep surprising me.
Yeah. Who is your favorite artist? Like, that can be anything, music, art, anything.
Oh man, there's so many. Who's my favorite? I don't really have a favorite, to be honest. I'll say that one of the people who's moved me more than anyone in my life is Björk, the singer from Iceland.
Yeah.
As an overall artist, as a singer, as a lyricist, as a visual artist, as a conceptual artist, I think she probably wins because she's just like, I can't even imagine how her brain works. Maybe tied with Tom York from Radiohead as well.
Okay. Who are your heroes in real life?
My heroes in real life are my best friend, Leela, in South Africa. She's an incredible person who does incredible things, like teaches yoga to prisoners to help them rehabilitate and manage their energy once they get back out of prison and back into society. She's pretty incredible. And as cheesy as it sounds, I think one of my heroes is also my mother-in-law, because she's tough as nails. I have so much respect for her.
Cool. What do you most dislike?
I dislike insincerity, and I dislike people who are really just interested in hearing their own voice. I like to think of them as navel gazers. They just like to be totally introspective, and it's all me. Drives me nuts.
Okay, this next question, try not to think about Hitler. What historical figures do you most despise?
Geez, these are tough ones. What historical figures do I most despise? Does Trump count? He's history, right?
Yeah, luckily his history, and yeah, he absolutely counts. And
yeah. Yeah, he's probably the main one.
What natural gift would you most like to possess?
Oh, I would love the natural gift of, I can't think of the word for it, but when you're able to take really complex thoughts and just distill them down into something really simple, like that gift of kind of being able to speak the way Seth Godin writes, you know, because I am a real chatty Cathy, and obviously. And so, you know, I'm sure half the time when people ask me a question, they're like, Heather, you could have answered that in 5 words, not 5 paragraphs, you know. And I wish that I had that ability to just like synthesize information and bring it out in a really concise way. Yeah.
How would you like to die?
Undramatically.
What vice do you have that you most like to give into?
Eating delicious bread.
Okay. Thank you so much. It has been a blast having you on. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have anything to say to our current or post viewers, feel free.
Well, thank you also for having me on. This has been really fun, and your questions were super hard, but also really interesting. I really enjoyed that part. To anyone who's listening, if anything that I've said has resonated with you, obviously feel free to check out my book. And in fact, you don't have to buy it and invest the money right away. You can just go to my website, heatherthorkelson.com, and opt in and get the first chapter for free. And that'll kind of give you an idea whether it's for you or not. Because again, like I said earlier, I don't like to push people into buying stuff they don't need.
I don't think you're allowed to say that. I think you should say, go to my website, check out the first chapter, and then buy the book. I think
and
that's
then go
what you're
buy
supposed
it.
to do.
You'll probably be better off for it. I also have a program that I'm starting up now, which is basically for people who are working on their own, working by themselves, whether it's from home or wherever. Especially now in COVID, everyone's working from home, it seems. A program that people can actually co-work together with me and other entrepreneurs and actually have brains to bounce things off of. So you don't have to feel totally alone all the time. We have sprint sessions where you show up and you actually go, okay, for the next hour, we're going to work on X, and you decide your thing and you go. And it's just to me, it's sort of the next level of accountability, and it works incredibly well. So if anyone's interested in that kind of thing and they're feeling like they're really tired of being on their own and they want to talk with other business owners, then you can check that out as well. And it's the same thing, heatherthorkelson.com/the-incurables.
I'll put links in the description. Everybody check out Heather, and speak to you guys later. Have a nice day.